Welcome back to week 2. I'm Chris Coates again. Pitched 4 years at Division I Columbia University and in the minor leagues for 7 years with the Blue Jays and a couple independent teams. And I got Aaron Jersel here again, who played 4 years at Clemson and also with the Blue Jays and a number of other teams, including Taiwan, and currently a scout with the Philadelphia Phillies. So yeah, last week we had some conversation about youth baseball and our experience, and I thought Aaron gave a lot of good insight around the current state of youth baseball as well, and his coaching with his son's team. This week we're going to focus on high school baseball. I'm going to start out with just including my brother who watched our video last week. Aaron mentioned his brother got me in hot trouble. Sometimes we have an agenda, and then Aaron mentioned his brother, and I was like, shoot, I don't have any stories about my brother for week 1. So yeah, high school was actually tough for us. We were only a year apart, but we just never seemed to be on the same team. And then my brother's senior year, my junior year, we were both going to play on varsity. It was going to be one of our only years to play together, really throughout youth baseball and in high school. And he got cut. It made a hard decision for me to want to play too. I felt like maybe he shouldn't have got cut, and should I play? And I know my parents were really upset, and he actually wanted me to play. Right, we had played in the yard and all the things we talked about last week, but just never got to play in competitive games together. But yeah, that was tough for high school. Just starting off my story that was really excited about my junior year to get to play with my brother, and it just didn't happen. So, yeah. So, hey, Aaron, so how about you? So, any quick recollections about your high school career before you went off to Clemson?
Yeah, so my high school career, I went to kind of a middle-sized high school, and it wasn't it was in the city, in Columbia, South Carolina. We moved down there from up north my sophomore year. And it was more of a basketball and football school. Baseball wasn't too important. It was kind of an afterthought. And the soccer coach was kind of double dipping as both the soccer coach and the baseball coach. And he did a great job considering the circumstances. We didn't have a nice field or anything. We had to do all the work ourselves, and any money that had to be raised, we built a cage, and things like that. We had to build the mound from scratch. Everything was all ourselves, and we put a lot of sweat into it. And then I believe my junior year, the state of South Carolina decided to move soccer from the fall to the spring. So the coach had to make a decision of which sport he was going to put all of his time and energy into, and he chose soccer. So we were high and dry without a coach. And Bill Thorpe, who was a math teacher, he was from Boston, and he was a big Red Sox fan, and he would wear flip-flops, and he had a long ponytail all the way down his back. And he volunteered to be the coach because we had nobody else. So he comes out and he wears his flip-flops, coaching third base, long ponytail coming out of his hat, and we had nobody else, and we were thankful for him. But funny thing was, we had a heck of a team. We advanced. We won our region. We only lost a few games, I think, in the region. We went far into the playoffs, and we had a real good game, a real good team. Yeah. And we had made a lot of good memories. But this guy, Bill Thorpe, he also bartended on the weekends, so we would sneak into the bar underage and fake IDs and everything else and hang out with them and say hello. And it was kind of a funny story and a good memory. Yeah. And he did the best he could. He didn't know the game. He couldn't teach us a whole lot, but he loved being out there, and we made the most of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not always easy, right? I think sometimes people look at players like us that got the ability to play in Division I and play professionally and just think it was an easy ride all the way, right? Like, had the best fields, best coaches, best equipment, best technology to advance us. But, I think sometimes having to dig deep and like you said, kind of do everything yourself with the field and support, it kind of makes you a little bit stronger to, get through the hard times of baseball. So,
yeah, it was well worth it. We did everything ourselves. We had to throw batting practice to each other. We had to do all those things. Like I said, we built the batting cage from scratch. We had no equipment or technology that they have these days. The field was, I remember dragging the field during PE class before games and things like that, and it was kind of rough. There was it wasn't we had bad hops in the field and whatnot, but the competition wasn't great. But we advanced and we won everything, and it was a good experience, good memories.
Yeah. Yeah, we had good success my junior year. I talked a little bit about, my brother not being on the team, but we had 3 good junior pitchers. My friend Todd Tortorisi, and another left-hand pitcher, Dennis Kelly. And so going into our senior year, we were favored to win our districts, just the smaller before you get to regions or states. And we started off really bad. And some of it stemmed from just not good team chemistry, I guess. I think we just thought we were going to win, because everyone told us in the newspaper, and we all had success at the senior league baseball level. But it kind of stemmed to what you were saying. We had to have responsibilities to pick up bases and clean up the field. And after a bad loss, me and Todd got into it in the locker room. I mean, we didn't get into a fist fight, but it did get kind of loud where the coach had to come in. But it was just really around that team responsibility, but ended up making us stronger, and we went on a big run. I want to say we won 20 games in a row after that. I think we were like 4-9, and just, kind of rolled the rest of the year. So, sometimes everything doesn't go smoothly in baseball, and, it's still a team sport. There's a lot of individualism, but I think at the end of the day, that team chemistry, like you said, maybe the coach wasn't the best coach, but he brought you guys together. I don't know about sneaking into the bar, but, I think we're past the statute of limitations, you guys getting in trouble or anything. But, yeah, we ended up winning states that year. And then the last thing I'll say to that is, we won states in the largest district in New York State, the Class A. Then there's B, C, just, depending on the size of the schools. But I was the only player to go Division I baseball on that team. So,
Wow,
when we talk about, teams coming together, we were a great team, right? But as individuals, there were some players like Dennis and Todd that I think could have played Division I baseball. And I'll talk about some others in our area in a second. But, just in Columbia at that time wasn't, a powerhouse in baseball. Today they're a lot better. We had a big win against Southern Miss in the regionals this year, but back then, it was probably the lower level of Division I on top of it, So to win a state championship in New York State, one of the better baseball states, I think, and the size of our school, it just kind of gives perspective for kids today that it's not easy to go to Division I. So.
Yeah, that's an amazing story.
Yeah. So how did you guys do your senior year?
Well, my senior year was a pretty good big letdown because we, after what happened in the junior year, we had expectations. Obviously, we won the region the junior year. We made it a few rounds into the playoffs. It was all in all, it was a very successful year. We had a couple of kids going to play college ball. I got a scholarship to Clemson, secured. Had another kid going to USC Aiken. There's some small schools, and we were generating some interest. And so the senior year, I think it was kind of a letdown. Mm-hmm. And I think we let our guards down as well. And we kind of didn't appreciate everything we had and what we had worked for. And maybe a little bit of selfishness creeped into the whole situation and things like that. And personally, I think I let my guard down a little bit. Lost maybe some intensity and didn't work quite as hard in the off season. And the senior season was a letdown. And I don't even know if we made the playoffs.
Yeah.
But we lost to a lot of teams that we should have beaten.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the team chemistry wasn't what it should have been. And looking back, it was probably a learning experience for all of us in terms of, keeping our edge and staying hungry, things like that. Just we kind of collectively let our guards down and thought we were going to walk through and coast to the league, the region title, and things like that. And we thought we were kind of entitled to it. And looking back, it was a good lesson. It was really a lesson to learn. And it was, there was some frustration along the way, and we didn't come together as a team. Yeah. We weren't very cohesive. So that was quite this learning experience. And looking back, I didn't appreciate it at the time, but now I kind of see what happened.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think we both talked a little bit about the team chemistry, which is important for building a successful team. But I think maybe some of the kids out there want to know, hey, how did we get to Division I, right? So maybe focus in, you said you got your Clemson scholarship, kind of how that came about, whether it was through tryouts or through a coach or referral or someone coming to see you play, and just kind of how that experience came for you to get to Clemson.
Yeah, so, I had a really good sophomore year, and, I guess my name, back then we didn't have Twitter, and we didn't have Perfect Game, we didn't have all these outlets promoting kids, and, you go to a Major League Scouting Bureau tryout or whatnot, but it was mostly word of mouth, and college coaches would come see you play, and they didn't recruit you quite as early back then. I believe it was my junior year, the summer. The spring. The spring of my junior year, I started having a few college coaches come out, take a look. Nothing crazy. Yeah. And then I remember the Clemson coach came to see me pitch at an American Legion game that summer. And I threw very well. And then the assistant coach kind of came out the next week or two, and I did not throw well. I think I had a rough game. I was out of there in like the third or fourth inning. But for whatever reason, I was left-handed with loose arm, and he was real positive, and they were on hot and heavy. And honestly, I didn't. In terms of D1, that was about the only suitor. I mean, a couple other schools, South Carolina and Georgia, had reached out, but they didn't really pursue it. But I had some smaller schools like USC Aiken and maybe one or two others that were reaching out. But Clemson was really the only major D1 school, and at the time they were really strong. They were a top 10 program, and they were kind of the team from day one. And I went up there to have a couple of visits, and my parents were impressed. And Dave Littlefield, who was the assistant coach and the recruiting coordinator at the time, he took a real interest, and my parents were sold on him and the school and whatnot. And we went up there for, they met with academic advisors. They took us to a football game, sat in the suite, things like that. And it was, they did it right. And Dave so I committed there and kind of had a letdown my senior year. It wasn't as good, but then went to Clemson, and Dave was there for about a year or 2 years, I believe, as my assistant. And he ended up taking a scouting job with the Tigers. One thing led to another. He ended up being the GM for the Pittsburgh Pirates for 7 years. But he was pretty much the reason I went to Clemson. Yeah. And he saw something in me, and I think that most schools didn't. And he took a chance on me, and it worked out. Yeah. And but he's pretty much the reason. And all it takes is one team. Yeah. To have an interest in you, or in the draft, all it takes is one major league team to have an interest, and it's an opportunity. It's really and really, it's about seizing opportunities. Yeah. And because sometimes one opportunity is all you need or all you get, and you got to take advantage of it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, think some really good things in there, right, for the young kids is that, there's a lot of pressure to perform, right? Especially when a college coach comes to watch you play, or there's some scouts in the stands pointing all the guns at you, and you don't always have to go 7 innings and strike out 10, right? Like you said, you had one good outing and one maybe not so good outing, but the coaches saw something in you that they could work with and develop. And I think you talked about it last time too, which was great, right? Those late bloomers, right? You don't need that guy that looks polished already, all in. You want to see that guy still got some upward mobility if you can work with him and, maybe increase velocity a little bit, get him a third pitch that he can throw for strikes more consistently because, both as pitchers, we know having 3 pitches that you can throw for strikes, on a consistent basis, really changes the game for the batters, not knowing what's coming soon.
Yeah. And looking back, I was one of those kids that was a later bloomer because I think what the Clemson coaches saw in me, they saw a kid that was left-handed with a loose arm, and he was unpolished. I was coming from a program where I wasn't getting a lot of help in high school, honestly. I wasn't like one of these other kids coming out of bigger programs and getting good coaching and playing for good teams in the summer. I wasn't that kid. But I was kind of under the radar in that terms. But hey, one team, one recruiter, Dave Littlefield, he kind of saw something that he liked, and he took an interest. And I didn't get offered a lot of money, honestly, in terms of scholarship.
Yeah. It
was a small amount, but it was my best offer.
Yeah.
And I went to school, and what they probably saw was, they never told me this, but they probably saw a kid that, okay, well, hey, we'll take a chance on him. He won't pitch a lot for us his freshman year. He might even redshirt, but we'll develop him, and we'll have him on the team, and we'll have him under scholarship. And in a couple of years, maybe he's something. Maybe he performs for us. And sure enough, that's kind of exactly what happened. But I didn't realize at the time all these kids want to go in and play right away, which is understandable.
Yeah.
But it's not always realistic.
Yeah.
And going back, I could have gone to a junior college and pitched a lot of it, maybe 50 or 60 innings as a freshman, but I didn't have that perspective. But all these kids want to go to D1, which I did too, and I was getting, I had an offer there, and I was better off for it. It was in a very good baseball environment, very competitive. I was forced to get better right away, and I did, but it took a while. Yeah. And what the message is development is a process. It doesn't come overnight, and it's a small, as they say, 1% better every day. It's true. Development, it doesn't happen all at once, and you just gotta plug away, get a little bit better every day. Yeah, that's what this game is all about.
Yeah. I love. I think it's a quote by Cooper Flagg's mom. The basketball phenom that got drafted this year. That he was supposedly the best at the gym, and I won't say the words she said, but she said, if you're the best at the gym, find another gym, right? Like, don't surround yourself by people that you can beat all the time. Surround the people that are beating you so that you get hungry to beat them. And to your point, get that 1% better every day. So, kind of like in your case, like, hey, I could go into a school like Columbia maybe, and dominated 50 innings or go to Clemson, and have to push yourself to get better, right? Because you had 4 years or at least 3 till your next chance to get drafted. And you wanted to make every use of that time, to improve so that, your dream of being able to play professionally could happen. So, yeah. Yeah, it's funny. We, I kind of compare it to maybe like an American Idol. And I know it's better, you said, like with Twitter and Perfect Game. And I'm sure that, you could share later on when maybe we get into, talking about a professional careers about how the scouting works today. But, before I talk about my journey, I'll talk about a couple guys you might have played against from my area that both went to NC State and really good high school players. We had a ton of good high school players. You mentioned Georgia. Dave Fleming, who pitched at Georgia and the Mariners, was in our conference. Yeah. But the two guys I'm thinking about are Jeff Pierce, who got drafted and played with the White Sox, and Vinny Hughes, who also got drafted by the Marlins, but they ended up going. We had a pretty good local community college team with a good coach. They didn't get any offers out of high school and then went there.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and then Vinny, basically told me this great story. I'll probably ruin it. We should probably have him on to tell it because I think it's a great story for young kids that I believe it was the soccer coach at NC State was friends with the baseball coach at the community college in Poughkeepsie, New York, Dutchess Community College. And he hooked up the baseball coach, from NC State with the Dutchess Community coach. And he was up on a recruiting visit in the Northeast. And he said, hey, I'll stop by to kind of see Jeff and Pierce and Vinny hit. And this was like their first or second year, I believe, at the community college. And someone came out just throw batting practice, and the coach came by. And I guess Pierce, I'm sure you remember him. He was like launching balls, and Vinny tells the story like, oh, great, like I got a hit after that guy, But as they were hitting, the coach, I guess, ran back up to his car, got some pamphlets and stuff, and was like, just like you said, you just need one school interested in you, right? And here's two really good baseball players that, we're getting looks, at the community college and performing really well. That team, went on and did some really good things in the JUCO circuit. But, a friend of a friend, gets this guy to come out and just watches these two guys launching balls over the fence, at ease. And both had pretty good careers at NC State, I would think.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I think Vinny was the the leader in the ACC in batting one season when he was there.
Oh, he could hit.
Yeah.
He could really hit.
Yeah.
I remember them. Remember both of them. I forgot about Pierce.
Yeah.
But I remember Vinny well because I ended up playing against him in the New York Penn League that summer. I think John Castleberry signed him as an undrafted free agent, as I recall.
Yeah.
Or maybe he got drafted late. But I know he was a senior at NC State, didn't get much money, didn't really play. I don't think he had a natural position, but he could hit.
Yeah.
And that was his thing. And I remember having to face him that summer after the draft in the New York Penn League. He was with whoever the Marlins affiliate was. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But to your point, it's you keep playing. If you love the game, you keep playing and keep getting better. And because so kids get overlooked, I'm telling you, kids fall through the cracks. Even in this age of perfect game rankings and Twitter and PBR, whatever else is out there, all the showcase craziness. Kids get better on their own timetable. If you love the game, keep playing, because the late bloomers and some guys don't peak until later for whatever reason, and that's okay. That's just the way we are. And keep playing, and somebody will notice. And when you get a break, take advantage of it and seize the opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, so before I get into my story, we'll divert a little bit, and maybe I'm throwing you off guard here, so if you don't know, we can move past it, but, just because we're talking about getting overlooked, what do you think about the Yankees pitcher Schittler the other day and what he did? And, he went, I don't want to belittle any colleges, but he was at, Northeastern, or, he wasn't
Northeastern.
Not a big D1 school. I think they said he was throwing upper 80s, 90 in college, or, right? Kind of a late developed player, that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But pretty.
Yeah, I'm not familiar. I didn't see him. I don't have the benefit of seeing him. I don't cover the Northeast, but I did read about it that, he went to Northeastern. He was a 7th round pick, which, it's not a high pick, but it's a decent pick.
Yeah.
Obviously it wasn't a priority top round pick, but the velocity came in. It's a perfect example of a late bloomer.
Yeah.
Right-hander throwing generic velocity. I don't know what the command or pitchability was like at that point, but it's a great story. He obviously came on, he got in the Pro Bowl, seized the opportunity, got better and better, and here we go. He's striking out everybody on national television in the postseason. Pretty amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I was watching with my son, and he just, I do a lot of pitching lessons, right? And there's some point to, sorry, I just getting reminded that we're closing out here. that, you got to put some effort into throwing, right? You don't want to get tight, but there's, hip turn and the grip of the ball. But my son's like, Dad, it doesn't even look like he's trying. And it's just coming out at 100 miles. It's nice, easy delivery and just, and, obviously the batters had a hard time picking it up. But, again, I just thought it was a great story and some of the things that we've been talking about, that you don't have to be that first round pick, to be able to make it. If you continue to work, there's opportunities for, not everybody's Bryce Harper or Aaron Judge, right? There's still 95% of the spots in the league are going to these guys that work hard and have some natural talent, obviously, but, a lot of it comes from hard work and listening, right? And getting some tips from some experienced players and coaches. So.
Yeah. And I'll say as a scout, one of my favorite players I've ever signed was a kid named Ryan Tepera. He was at Sam Houston State in Texas, a mid-major school, and he had as a sophomore in college, I think his ERA was north of 6, and wasn't a good year. And then as a junior, he backed it up with an ERA north of 7, if I remember correctly. And they were, he was an athletic kid. Wasn't real physical, but he was athletic, well-coordinated delivery. He had a loose arm, and that was the appeal. But he just did not perform, and the coaches, at the end, they didn't have a lot of, I don't know, they didn't work out. They were ready to see him, go elsewhere, and took a chance on him in the 19th round for $40,000. Now this is probably 15, 17 years ago. So it's at that point in the draft, you're just taking chances on guys you think maybe we can get, player development can make him a little bit better somehow. But anyways, it worked out. The kid ended up pitching 8 or 10 years in the big leagues and had a good, solid career as a reliever with Toronto and Anaheim, I believe, and maybe 1 or 2 other teams, Cubs, White Sox. And it was fun. Those are the fun ones. You sign, you identify something, some athleticism, some looseness, and it just had, for whatever reason, it hadn't come together for him in college. And Sam Houston State's a mid-major school, and he couldn't perform there. They didn't really want anything to do with him after 3 years. And we took a chance, and it's a good story.
Yeah.
And he was one of those kids that came on later. So.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe one episode we can get Ben to join us. Ben Weber, a friend of ours that we play with, right? I think he's got a great story too, kind of like.
He's got a great story, unbelievable story.
Yeah. Yeah, I always say, for the 5 to 6 years that Ben got in the major leagues, to play with Barry Bonds, Ken Griffey Jr., and then win a World Series with the Angels, right? Like, Don Mattingly, all those years of baseball, doesn't go to the World Series once, and Ben gets 5 years, get to play with some of the greatest players of the game. So, yeah. And a long journey in the minor leagues. Yeah, go ahead.
And then 2 years in Taiwan, right? A year in independent league and 2 years in Taiwan.
Yeah, so my high school story, just real quick, we'll just wrap up with that. And then, next week we'll start getting into, our college. No, we're talking about college this week? No, high school. College is next week. We'll get into that some more. But yeah, to get recruited for college, like I said before, we had some good players. Obviously, Dave Fleming got recruited for Georgia. But, guys like Vinny and Pierce and myself, weren't getting a ton of looks. A lot of press in the papers, but again, no Twitter, as you said, no perfect game. I went out and played in Long Island, just word of mouth. I went to Rockland County because my dad was a talker. He just talked to people and just said, hey, come play for this team. They want, as a pitcher, you come and just be a PO, right? And just come and throw, 5-6 innings for the team because you need depth of pitching when you're playing a bunch of games on a weekend. So just kind of stuck at that. I actually, my biggest break probably was I got invited to a tournament. It was called the Piedmont Airlines Tournament. It was kind of the lesser of what they called the Empire State Games in New York State, which was the bigger, tournament for, premier athletes of all sports. And I just pitched really well there. Got lucky. There was a Met scout named Mike Becker that really took to, like you said, you just need one person to like what you bring to the table. Ended up being the pitcher of the tournament. Our team won, so that all helped. And as I said, my dad was a talker, and he became friends with Mike. I got invited to Shea Stadium. I thought I was getting drafted out of high school. I met Shea, talking to Met scouts, and he ended up being good friends with the coach at Columbia. And then that coach at Columbia came out to see me pitch, similar to what your story with Clemson. I pitched pretty well. And then, like I said, next week we'll get into the ups and downs of the college pitching, but, in some of the nuances that we said that where I was able to start all 4 years at Columbia, right? 50, 60, 70 innings every year versus, hey, first year you going to, like a Clemson or a Duke or, Florida State as a freshman, especially in today's day, with the transfer portal, that's going to be pretty tough, to get your innings in. So, yeah.
No question. Yeah. And there's pros and cons of both, as we kind of talked about. So, yeah, that'll be a good discussion for another day.
Yeah. Cool.
For sure.
Well, as we always say, I hope you guys like the material. Make sure you subscribe. If there's some things that we missed about high school, like we've said, also Aaron's got some experience. He'll share what he can without divulging any secrets of the Phillies from a scouting perspective. But next week we'll get into that college career. We'll talk a little bit more about Aaron's pitching at Clemson, my pitching at Columbia, and then how that translated into getting us drafted. So and then in a couple of weeks we'll get into the fun stuff, right? Of hey, now you finally made it, and you're in pro ball, at the lowest level at A ball, and trying to work your way up a couple ladders to try to make it to the big leagues. So thanks for joining, Darren. Thanks for being here tonight. Appreciate it.
Absolutely enjoyed it as always.